Hey, I'm Nancy DiPaolo, and I'm one of the volunteers for the foundation. And it's my great privilege to be able to introduce Karmen to you all today. Karmen Trzupek is the Senior Director of Scientific Programs at Global Genes. In this role, she's responsible for developing collaborative programs and partnerships that maximize the RareX data platform to advance rare disease understanding and support the development of much needed treatments. By background and training, Karmen is a clinical genetic counselor. She received her graduate degree from Northwestern University and has worked in both academia and telemedicine. In her last role, she directed clinical trial services at InformedDNA, providing patient support, genetic testing, and clinical trial screening for patients impacted by rare disorders. So come on down.
Thank you. Well, that's a lot of applause for this little room. That's very nice. Okay, so this is a very different session than most of the sessions today, in that it's just super hands-on, and we're just going to walk through what it takes to get signed up in the Dreams portal. So for the people in the room, some of them have already been getting started. That might seem like they have a head start on everybody else, but our Wi-Fi issues might negate that lead. So here's what you need. You're going to need an email, and you'll need to create a password when you get started. For people at home, you don't need to worry about it in this room because I already pulled it up for you. But you can only use one of these browsers: Google Chrome, Apple Safari, or Microsoft Edge. These are the ones that work the best. And you will need a computer or a tablet. It is very, very much on our wish list to have a true app. At this point, we don't. So if you try to pull it up on your phone, you can pull it up on your phone on the web, but it's not optimized. It's going to be really small. So it's a much better experience if you have a computer or a tablet. Okay, so with that, we're just going to get started. If you go to get signed up, and I think somehow there should have been a page here first that everybody here had first. So if everybody at home who's looking to get signed up right now, if you just go to your browser and you search for RareX Dreams Portal or RareX Sleep Consortium, either one, it will pull it right up to the page to initially get signed up. When you go in to get signed up, there will be two buttons, like just a little bit down the page, two big buttons that say get started and log in. So if you have not created an account yet, you need to get started. So you're going to create your account. Okay, so when you create your account, first you just need your name, first name, last name, email. You need to let us know how you are essentially affiliated with this condition or group of conditions. So you need to let us know if you are a patient or if you are a caregiver. In this community, a caregiver typically is a parent. So this very much is a platform that has been designed for the experience both of patients experiencing these conditions as well as parents. And as an aside, there are a lot of teenagers with hypersomnia conditions who are interested in participating. I actually have an 18-year-old who's doing an internship with us who has narcolepsy. For teenagers, we do not have the ability to have them legally represent themselves on our platform and sign the informed consent. So they do need a parent, but essentially once they're in the platform, the surveys will tell them, we want you, the affected individual, to be answering all the surveys, right? So just there's that little aside. Like if you have a young child and you're the parent, you as the parent are going to be entering the information. If you're an adult, obviously you are the one who's entering the information. But if you have a teenager, even like a 12-year-old who's absolutely capable of answering for themselves, we want to hear from them. You know, when we're asking questions like, how does this impact your ability to pay attention in class? I can't answer that for my 15-year-old, right? I have a 15-year-old. I can tell you I cannot answer that for her. I need her to answer that. Okay, so once you do this, then you're going to click sign up, that little gray button at the bottom. There are a couple of other links there. Those links are to the privacy policy and the terms of use. We, of course, encourage you to read them, but you don't have to. It doesn't force you to do that. Okay, so once you do that, it's going to send you an email. So you do have to go and get into your email. So you'll need both of these things open. You'll be in the portal signing up, and then you have to go to your email to verify it. This is really primarily to make sure that if you made a little mistake when you were entering your email, that it doesn't go to the nether and we never ever find you again. So we know that your email is a good email, and you confirm that. And then once you do that, create a password. Probably the number one problem people have at this step is they forget to write down their password or save it somewhere. So however you normally save passwords, please save your password. Okay, so once you have done that, you're going to create your password, you're going to save your password, and then you're going to log in. Okay, so once you're in here, you do have to sign the terms of use. This is just the underlying platform. And then we're going to get into the informed consent. When you go through the informed consent, this is just like signing an informed consent for any other kind of research study. So it's going to go through in this, what are the potential benefits? What are the risks of participating? Do you have the ability to change your mind at some point? What happens with your data, right? So let me just answer all those questions for you. You, of course, are encouraged to read the whole informed consent, but I think it's important for people to just like talk about it. What is an informed consent, and what are you actually signing for? First and foremost, all of the research studies that we host, the data is patient owned, right? So I want to be really clear about what that means. What does it mean for it to be patient owned? Because we're sharing this data and we want to share it widely, right? The whole point is we want to collect the kind of information, the kind of data that is going to be really, really valuable to improving our understanding of these diseases, decreasing time to diagnosis, and getting better therapies. We can't do that if we don't share the data. So we're sharing the data, but we're sharing it with your preferences. We are also always going to comply with your wishes. So if a year from now you're like, you know what, I've changed my mind. I've been thinking a lot about data privacy and I just worry too much and I just want to remove it. We'll remove it. Like, you own it. This is your data. So we're going to do what you want with the data. All the data that we share is de-identified. So no researcher that we share that data with can ever trace it back and figure out that it was you. We do undergo like extremely rigorous review and auditing for the way that we protect data and for the way that we comply with data protections. And in fact, because we are a global platform, it is much stricter, the data protection guidelines on our platform than a lot of research studies that are based solely in the United States, because we have to comply with GDPR in Europe. We have to comply with like German standards, which are even higher than GDPR. We have to comply with like different standards out of India and Brazil. It's crazy. I'm really thankful that privacy is not my job at the company, like really thankful. So we've signed the informed consent. We've said like, yes, I want to do this. I want to be part of this study. And now I'm going to move forward. And you're going to answer some like very basic demographics. So most of this is the same thing you would have to do for many like studies and sign up for lots of things beyond just research studies. There are a couple of things though in the demographics that are a little bit deeper than what you would have to do in a lot of other places. So there is one place, for example, where it asks about household income, and there's another place where it asks about your type of insurance. This information is only ever used for health economics outcomes research, right? And so what does that mean? What that really means is like, if we're trying to figure out, there was a question this morning in, I think Dr. Trotty's session about why do some people drop off drugs when they have said that they're helpful? Like, do they stop being helpful? Do they develop Do they develop side effects and they find that the side effects are not worth like the incremental benefit they were getting from the drug? Or is it because they can no longer access the drug? Is it because, a bunch of insurance companies have stopped approving that? So that kind of information is really, really difficult to get at, and there are multiple ways to get at it. But broadly speaking, when we do health economics outcomes research, and I say we in the big picture, because here at RareX and Global Genes, like we're not doing that research, we're creating the data for researchers. But when health economics outcomes researchers do that kind of research, they do look at things like, well, is there a big difference that we see in like drop off in medication adherence in individuals who have private insurance versus those who have like state-based insurance? And then if you go look at policies, have you seen a change in state-based Medicare and Medicaid policies, right? That can help inform what's happening, why is it happening, and where do we need to provide support? You can say, I don't want to answer to those questions if you don't want to. Adding a patient. So if you are a caregiver, so if you have a child with hypersomnia, with narcolepsy, and you are going in here, you kind of have to create 2 accounts, not all the way from the beginning. You just still have your 1 email. But in the dashboard, you're going to have your caregiver account, and then you have to add a patient. In my demo account, I have like 5 fake children because like I'm testing stuff all the time. So you can add lots. You can, if you're a caregiver for your husband who has a neurodegenerative disorder and you're a caregiver for your children, you could have multiple types of accounts. Once you've filled out your own, you do, as a caregiver, if you have a child, you do need to add that. So you can add patient there. Most people, I think, are filling this out for themselves and are just the patient. They don't need to do that. And then up at the top, you should always, if you're a caregiver, so this is more for the people who are joining us virtually, you will always be able to see up at the top left on your dashboard if you are in like what person you're in, right? So it says at the top, Marilyn Lucas, these are all made up names. And she is viewing Macy. So you can see right there, like, oh, like I'm Marilyn, obviously I'm not, but I'm viewing my child Macy as opposed to I'm viewing myself. Also in the demographics, so this is like toward the very bottom, you can see here that if you put in the diagnosis, if you start typing sleep, you'll get sleep-related disorders. It's kind of an umbrella category, of course. Narcolepsy is there, idiopathic hypersomnia is there. So whatever your most specific diagnosis is, you can put that there. If you are undiagnosed, but very clearly part of this community, and there are a lot of people like that. So if you're like on your diagnostic journey and you very obviously have abnormal daytime sleepiness, very disrupted nighttime sleep, you're working through diagnostic testing, getting sleep tests, getting to the right experts, but you don't have a diagnosis yet, that's okay. Actually, we'll never really significantly improve our ability to diagnose people if we only ever collect data on people who are already diagnosed and not the journey. So this is very much also a place for people on their journey. So if you don't have a specific diagnosis, you can just put sleep-related disorders, and it will still give you those very sleep-specific surveys to answer. The data sharing preference agreement is essentially how you tell us you want your data used. Most people in the rare disease community at large tell us general research. They tell us, like, I want my data used for any qualified researcher that's working on this group of diseases. But some people would tell us, like, no, I only want it used for health or biomedical research. So like the health economics outcomes research I was talking about before, they'd be like, no, I don't want any of that done. I really only want it very specifically to health and biomedical research specifically related to my disease. So these are the places where you can tell us that. And you can always change your mind, by the way. And if you ever change your mind on one of these, All you have to do is go back to a completed survey and ask to reopen it, and you can change your preferences. And if you ever have questions, there's a support email I can give you at the end, because sometimes people are like, wait, I forgot how to do that. And they'll just email support and they'll tell them how to change it. Other limits to research that you can make that are, of course, optional are some people only want it for non-commercial purposes, so they don't want it shared with biopharma. We do have a lot of relationships with biopharma companies. We believe that they need this data to make better therapies, but you can 100% be part of this and choose not to share it that way, and that's up to you. This last one, only research that's been approved by an institutional review board. So an institutional review board views all clinical research studies. It reviews all clinical trials. Like, they reviewed this study, they've approved this study. We do have an internal team that reviews all data requests and makes sure that it is a really valid research request. But sometimes it's not an IRB approved study, because maybe it's something like, we actually had one of these requests last year. It's a researcher who's developing a frog model of a rare disease that's on our platform. And she has seen some really interesting symptoms in this frog model, and she wants to see if we see those same symptoms in our patient population. So she doesn't have an IRB approved study, because IRBs review patient research, and she's doing research on frogs. But it's like a super reasonable request. She just wants to see what symptoms do people with this condition have. So we approved that request, and she went through the whole data access. So that maybe gives you an idea of sometimes why it wouldn't be IRB approved, but our study is still IRB approved. So always reviewed by a review board. There's a couple of questions on here that are really forward thinking. So it asks you do you have a biological thing? Have you ever done biobanking or something? Or would you be interested in biobanking? This doesn't mean that we have a study today. It's more forward thinking, oh, in the future, if we're building this, we know you would be interested in this. And we are exploring some of these types of partnerships. You would always be contacted about that. Telling us you're interested doesn't mean, yes, share my data with somebody, right? No, you would always be contacted. It's more telling us who's interested. If a study like that came up, who should we invite? The patient community question, do you want your contact information shared with patient advocacy groups? So essentially, this is name and email only. And it is a way, if people just find us, if people are searching for narcolepsy and research and they find us and they sign up, do you want us to share your information, just your contact information, with the advocacy groups who we're partnering with, so that they can reach out and say hey, here's what we're doing. We have an upcoming conference if you'd be interested in attending. So yeah, we're very, very happy to share that, but only with permission. And then actually we just reviewed this with our IRB, and we just removed this last question. I can't remember if it's live yet or not. So you might still see this question today, but it's actually being removed. This summary data that communities get to see, it's aggregate. If you heard me this morning, you heard me describe aggregate. It's just oh, the kind of data you often see presented at conferences. I presented this morning, 46% of people in the hypersomnia community who are on the Dreams portal today tell us they have sleep apnea. There is no way for anyone to ever identify who was part of the 46% who said yes and who was part of the 54% who said no, when all we give is that number, right? So there's actually zero risk to this question, and it was creating inconsistencies in the data. So we did just remove this question, which the IRB agreed with. Most people in this community have not had genetic testing, though if you have had HLA testing, that is a type of genetic testing, and I would say yes. We do have a team that curates genetic data. So if you have a report that's got HLA testing in it, go ahead and submit it to us, and we will use that. If you have had genetic testing, but you don't have a copy of it handy, that's fine. Just say you don't have it. Okay. And then this is the last part of the initial sign up. So I'm going to tell you the initial sign up, because of everything we've been talking about, because of the informed consent process, because it's asking about your preferences, all this, it takes a while. It takes half an hour to get signed up. After that, everything is very customized, pretty short. Like most of the surveys after this are like 5 minutes, 8 minutes, very, very easily chunked. This head to toe survey is super high level, right? Do you have any problems with your vision? Do you have any problems with like GI function? If you say yes to one of those, when you've closed this out, when you have completed your initial registration, it'll have like a GI function questionnaire for you to answer. So it's designed that way so that you don't have to answer detailed questions about like all the possible symptoms that someone might have. You only get assigned the ones that you said yes to. So once you've done that, once you've got through the initial sign up, there are 3 super critical surveys to really get started for this community. So one is the sleep survey, and it's literally just called the sleep survey. And it goes through and asks you about things like, do you have sleep inertia? And it defines what that is and gives you examples. Do you have like parasomnias? Same, it defines it, gives you examples. That is really, really, really important information as we think about the spectrum of these diseases and the diagnosis. The diagnosis survey gives us information on family history. It gives us information on kind of the diagnostic journey. It gives us some really critical information. It's not long. And then there's this sleep study informed consent. So yes, there's a second informed consent document. This one's shorter. And essentially it's like, yes, I want to be part of this sub-study very specifically for my community, for the hypersomnia community. And that data, and the most important thing about this that is in the informed consent is that we have right now 7 different biopharma companies that have all come in and donated toward this program in a very pre-competitive, very collaborative way. It's very cool. It's essentially a cost-shared research study, which is super unique in this space to have biopharma companies cost-sharing one research study. All the companies that have cost shared that research study, they all get early access to the data. So it's important for you to know, right? Like, all right, we're going to give them first access to the data. After that, it will get opened up. But that's part of the informed consent that you need to know and you need to agree to be part of it. Once you have done that, if you agree to be part of the sub-study, that's when you'll get these ones that I talked about this morning that our clinical advisory group has said, these are the most important research surveys in these conditions. This is what's being used in clinical trials. This is how we want to follow people. This is how we're going to really show this sort of historical view is moving forward on therapy and what is and isn't working. So all of that will open up after that. We're at time. I have to close down. All right. Thank you, guys.